Hello and welcome to our F1 Racing League. We are here with PC Division 2 for round 6 at Austria. Shortest lap time on the calendar, 10 turns, 7 to the right, 3 to the left, got left and right, right around there. Nice elevation, as you will see in this hot lap as we go on board with Gabriel from Division 1. Now, turn 1 you got to brake quite late and turn in. As you hit that gradient, it helps you on the brakes, but effectively a lot of runoff in case you go wide in turn 1 there. First lap, through turn 2, barely a turn before a very heavy braking zone here, uphill into turn 3, sharp turn, and getting on the throttle here is so difficult. Very easy to spin out there if you don't have the traction control. Now you blast down the third DRS straight, down to turn 4 and 5, which famously saw Hamilton knock Albon into the gravel here as we go on board with Cookie P3. Driver's eye through 6 and 7, the only two true left-handers on this circuit. There you go. A bit of a straight line here as you go flick through 8 before heading down to the final 2 corners where you got to be so careful on track limits. Just crazy off track, and stewards will hand you an invalidation. Will be something to watch out for in qualifying here. As we now hop in to the action, as we see cars are just on their outlaps in qualifying here. Our lap on the first flying lap of the session on board. Through into turn 3. Heavy on the brakes, lots up a little bit. Right front tyre there, gets the power down cleanly. Very happy about there. My hotkey is just working. We'll just make our best guess as to what this lap's going to be. There we go, we can see the 45.1 second sector. I'll try and get that fixed in a second as we have a yellow flag behind. Can't see what that might be. No one has retired from the session. Generally runs at a 104.8 so far. An hour lap beat that. Hour lap can beat that by 2 tenths. Shado has gone fastest of them all with a 104.4. Better gone on 103.8. We'll hop on board with Ops in here, who's rounding the final corner at a 45.2 second sector. Twice as fast as our lap before. Was into 6th place with 105.2. Further down. Just coming through what looks to be turn 4 here. 8 not touching gravel. We have 6 and 7 here. You really do have to watch how your tyres wear around this because it's so uneven lateral. Pretty much the entire time you are turning right, and so the left tyres are going to perform, and then suddenly you jump on the left hand in 7, be very careful. Tyres aren't cold, although I'm qualifying that, so it won't be a problem. And as these drivers fold into the pits, I'll try and get the qualifying timer all set up for you. Well, he's set 45.1, he's set to 2 here, so this is the decent map to rival our lap in the field right now. No one yet to beat 8 man with 108. Weltrin has dipped into the 103's here. Only did another second place as Tori comes across the line. The 104.3. P5 for the AlphaTauri driver. benefits this. Okay. Here we go. So I've somehow managed to fix what's going on. What we will do, as our new driver Felix and Eli must like to start a flying lap, we will go on board with the Alfa Romeo, see what they are capable of. Fresh. Hold on. Hey, there we go. Bit of a weird font, I'll be honest. But you know, it's turn 3. Hard braking zone, no lockup on the front there. That's very good for the driver, and a nice clean application of the throttle on the exit. Reset to 1, of course. Exactly what you would expect, not having a lap set already. Oh, and a big lockup into turn 4 would cost a fair amount of time here. The lap has been valid, so we will carry on turn 6, not touching the very edge of the track there. Round through 7, looks well on that kick turn 8. Into foul corner, so be very careful not to invalidate. Clean through 9, and the final corner goes in quite deep, just about keep to the track limits. Across the line with a 105.6. Really just to slot onto the back of the field right now, but not too far, and it's definitely a nice bank lap to get your eye in here around the circuit. We'll follow us behind. Also has not set a lap, so this will be crucial so they can get their bank lap in, push the remaining one. Turn 9, very conservative there, barely even touching the off-track and through 10. Definitely just wanted to get a lap on the board, but it is a very fast lap indeed, 1.94, which will provisionally on the front row of the bid, and that was being very conservative on the track limits on the final 2 corners, so that will be a very, very confidence boosting lap from Hilda there. And perhaps in the late parts of the session we'll try and extend those limits a little bit, try and get onto poles. Now we go on board with 1 goal, 1 dream. As we also get to set a flying lap. Watch this on the television camera to start off with. Get a YouTube circuit ready the next 36 laps viewing as 1 goal comes across the line to start the lap into turn 1, and that was taking a lot of curve. I'm surprised that hasn't invalidated the lap, but what I can see, the lap is still valid, and the braking zone into turn 3, very deep. This camera does not give perspective of how steep that hill is. 1 goal managed to get the power down quite cleanly. Wasn't the only keyboard player in this division, but I think there's a slight aid of traction control on that car just to make sure that it's not 0 to 100, because it's impossible to get through that traction zone that really. Bundle sweeps rounds turn 6 and 7, taking it right to the edge of the track for turn 8. Valid. Clean sweep of 14 cars on the leaderboard. 10-minute mark of qualifying. Races across the line for P6 with 104.1. Very nice lap indeed. Big bad. Moving pole sitter ahead of Ferrari of Mill and AlphaTauri duo of Tori and Weltering. Bad, so that might actually be valid here. Weltering's lap is valid. Been through the first sector, so there's an improvement there. See if the second sector can match that. And another green sector, looking good for Weltering now. Up on board, final 2 corners. Oh, right to the inside of the track there. That was very well driven. Fast set of corners, so this could be a personal best, and it is. It's a 1:06. Weltering your provisional pole position. 7 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. We've had lots up there, which makes me believe this is a flying lap attempt, because if you're on an in lap, you do not push hard enough to lock up there. Not want to ruin the tyres that you may well be starting the race on. And this track is quite difficult on tyre wear if you want to pull off the optimal strategy. But it looks like Big Bad is pulling into the pits here. So it's during braking turn of turn 4. We don't have many drivers out on line laps right now. We have nobody rounding turn 4 and has not improved first set to this in lap. And Jazzy Binman also not improving through the sector. You have Mill up into turn 3 on a flying lap. It's the brakes. Hard, not lock up. It's low on that and nice clean exit. We're going to see a lot of action there during this race. It's a prime overtaking zone, which is so difficult to get right. And if you see that the car in front hasn't quite hit the brakes properly or isn't getting on the throttle very well, you can make that jump if you can nail it. But if you don't nail it, you could very well find yourself making acquaintances with the wall. So that's definitely a danger. Mill has not improved either the first 2 sectors here. But we'll have to pull off a monster plan for corners this time. If you know, there we go, Mill doesn't get a 103.8. It does not improve the position, but it is enough to jump up half a tenth. And if you know that you're a little bit, getting a little bit of time in those final 2 corners, you really can throw it through. And if you do invalidate the lap by going off track, it's not really the end of the world. So you can have some confidence, really going for it as much as you can. And we see Mill did improve slightly. Yes, so third we were hops in. It's a turn 3. There we go. So I have some new graphics in Div 2 race here, but it does mean that us problems to work out, making sure they're all working as they should. Felix did not take a good line through that corner. Assume that not a flying lap attempt, it may well be an in lap. At this point in the session, we're expecting to see drivers link into the pit so they can refuel, get a fresh set of soft compound tyres on, and make a run for the final laps of this session. As we do this, we will see anyone try to go out on medium compound tyres, and as of yet, higher field is running on softs. Now the way it works in Formula is that traditionally with the 3 qualifying sessions, if you make it into the 3rd and final session, which is reserved for the top 10 drivers, then you have to start the race on the tyre you set the fastest lap in Q2. Now, of course, in this league, we only have a single 8-team qualifying session. We still follow the same rule that if you qualify inside the top 10, the tyre you set that lap on is what you start the race on. So we'll be seeing all these top 10 runners start on the soft compound tyres on new softs, while the 4 cars at the back of the grid will have a free choice to go onto whatever tyre they want. So alternate strategy of starting on the and hoping to overcut the field or possibly get a well-timed safety car at their pit stop, which would throw them back into the race from a disadvantaged start. Pit bad. Rounds turn 5. First sector only gain over a tenth of a second to take provisional pole from Weltering, who no doubt will have an extra attempt here. It's really put the pressure on him. Kate Bad can nail these final 2 corners. Does not go outside the track limit, so across the line we go, and it's only a 103.801. It's new. It makes a gap slightly bigger to Mill, but it's not enough for pole position, and that may be Kate Bad's final chance, unless there is fuel in that Mercedes for another flying lap attempt. As we count down seconds, less than 100 seconds to go in the session, all the cars that are currently hit will be looking to get released as possible, because while this is a very short lap, only 62 seconds for Formula 1 pole time, it's still need to have that time plus the release time in the pits, get out in time, set a flying lap at the end of qualifying. So you need to be across the start-finish line for the start of your lap, and it looks like Weltering actually has out of the pits and is on the turn 2 great. So there will be time for all of these runners who set a lap. Weltering does lock up there on the outlap, possibly needing to get a move on, knowing that time's running out, and pushed a bit too hard into that front through braking zone. As Teresa Jones has set a 103.6, jumping onto the front row of the grid. That's very impressive from the McLaren driver. Aralak comes across the line, and that may have been the end of that. Hop on turbo swerve. And the maid keep an eye on to see if on to Mill. Mill has, I think, just crossed the line to start the lap, as indeed been in the first sector, so this is an improvement so far. Lead down to turn 4. That's a lot of elevation changes, but tricky on the brakes, especially downhill. Don't have as much traction on the surface, so very gentle on brakes to avoid a lock-up. Mill navigated that well. Flying through the third sector. This track has not improved to 2, so this may not be enough to improve, but it could jump up, possibly to P3 here. As Aralak actually beat by 5 thousandths, so Mill will want to is able to with a 103.7 beat. For a little bit of time there, it seemed that Aralak was going to steal that position by 5,000. Weltering, who has gone purple through the second sector, so this could be an improvement, as Teresa Jenner's time only thousandths away from the AlphaTauri, but it doesn't end up mattering. Weltering is at 103.557, just making the gap even bigger behind, and takes pole position as 1-1 heads into the pits. And that will wrap up the qualifying session at Austria. So in order, start of this race, of Weltering, pole position in the AlphaTauri, ahead of Teresa Jenner's in the McLaren. Further back, Mill and Kate Bad are alongside each other on the second row, with the Red Bull pairing of Aralak and Turbo Swerve making up both 3 on the grid. Behind them, Tori and Nori are in 7th and 8th respectively. Shado and One Dream in the Renault-powered cars rounding out the top 10. Behind them, the 4 cars that can start any tyre they choose, is the Racing Point down Tracy and Opsin, ahead of Jazzy Binman, and rounding out the field is our newcomer of Beeline. I trust they needed a little bit of disappointment that's there with new driver wanting to maintain good first impression. And it's not quite worked out the way they would have hoped. But the advantage is that it can be a chaotic turn 1 here. Being at the extremity of the field there, it means really avoid a lot of the action. I have to say, you can just back up without losing positions and just find a gap. Find a gap in the shower of carbon fibre happening in turn 1, turn 3, and could bring you up a good few positions. But of course, everyone ahead, we've been hoping to have a clean start as well. Not allow that for the Alfa Romeo driver. And there you go. There is your running order. If every car did indeed qualify on soft compound tyres, those front 10 will start on those, hoping that didn't put too much stress into them in that qualifying session. Now the strategy we can expect for this race is probably a soft medium. It is possible around this track, and when it's possible, it's typically the fastest option that drivers have, but it will be a little bit of a stretch. Now, one advantage that you do have around this Austrian Grand Prix circuit is that it is the shortest lap on the F1 calendar, only 65 to 70 seconds for a base lap. So, if you are in front of another car, the car is much less of a concern than it may perhaps normally be. Because if you see the car behind pits, then you can react a minute later. So, really have to push on their outlap to make sure they can make a gap and get ahead of you. So, the cars at the front can react a little bit more rather than feeling pressured to make the first move. But of course, it can lead a bit of a false sense of security there. And if someone is quick enough on those fresher tyres, they can make it stick. As we load in to start the formation lap of this Austrian Grand Prix. And I'm joined in the commentary booth as we go on to start this race by Tom Mack. Hey Tom, how are you doing?
How's it going? Yeah, I'm here just in time for race start, thankfully. So looks like we've got a good race on our hands. Good quality for weltering.
What's good quality? It was pretty dominant from the AlphaTauri driver. Going into that final set of laps, Kuzminez did get within a few thousandths of that time, but then Welton lunged out ahead anyway. And if he had have pipped in, it wouldn't have mattered, so Welton definitely hoping to make a good launch here and preserve that lead.
Yeah, I did a lot of practicing this week with weltering, and he's very, very quick. And he was practicing a lot of different strategies as well, so he's well prepared for any sort of scenarios that may come up, whether it be a safety car or anything. I have not tuned into many Div 2 races this year with my Division 1 streaming business, but of course, so I don't know what the chaos is like during a Div 2 race. Whether a safety car is to be expected around here, I do not know.
I have seen a fair share of safety cars, I think, so far. One thing I will note is the fact that we are in the Styrian Mountains, and you can often have quite dramatic weather, but it looks like a beautiful day in Austria today. So I don't expect there to be any trouble in regards to rain or anything like that.
No, it looks like a really nice day. 22 degrees.
It does. So, what are you expecting to see on the start here? Because it's obviously it's a decent length running to turn 1 here, and you're expecting cars to try and make a move down the inside.
I think turn 1 is obviously the place where you can gain the most, but you can also lose the most, and it is that trade-off. I wouldn't expect some chaos.
Yeah, I think cars on the outside, as the lights go out and away we go, And Weltering doesn't get a very good start. Cruzagenes actually makes it into the lead due to turn 1 here. And Mill looks to the inside but can't make it round Weltering here. But coming out of turn 1, Mill has got the lead. And Weltering's pole position has already fallen back into 3rd place. And may start getting swallowed up by Australian Field as Mill goes down the inside into turn 3, can't quite make it stick, and possibly has compromised a little bit on that line. Looks it's okay as we head down into turn 4. Mill dives to the inside again. This time makes it around and takes the lead in this race. That is a lightning start from the Ferrari driver.
Cruzagen's pushed right to the edge of that turn, almost a replay of Hamilton on Albon, but fortunately got the car turned in well enough on fresh soft tyres. And I think Mille now probably has the pace to get away from the field here and build on this lead.
Yeah, definitely hoping to do that. But as we see, Kate Bad actually maybe run a little bit wide, but Jones will be looking to get a run here on Mill into turn 1. Goes around the outside, breaks late, and looks like the move might have stood, but it may have been outside track limits. It looks like it's been viewed okay through the game here, as Crew Tracy's had to head into the pits, presumably for a new front wing in that turn 1 incident.
Yeah, it is. New front wing and a fresh set of, well, it won't be a fresh set, it'll be soft tyres for him. So it seems like he's going to try and keep the same strategy, and he's banking on a safety car.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, if you get involved in a turn 1 incident, there's very little you do to recover from that without the aid of a safety car. So that will be the hope. It is fairly common around this track though, so definitely watch out. Might be able to climb back through the field here. As Tori looks up the inside of Kate Bad going to turn 9, it's a very fast corner. I think it was just a little bit of a peak. Ian, that Kate Bad is often going a little bit offline that final sector. I'm spotting a weakness, driver, as Uzogenes sets the fastest lap with a 107.7. Expect that to go down a good couple of seconds by the end of this race as the cars get light on. Kate Bad dives on the outside of Turbo Swerve into turn 3. Tori tries to follow, can't quite make it stick, and almost with that close speed, lost a piece of front wing.
Trying to get a good angle on whether or not he did in fact lose an end plate. It looks okay for now.
Yeah, I think it was just, I think coming in so quick on the brakes, had to dive on the outside, possibly off track a little bit, and just compromise the line for it to be real.
Kate Bad didn't have the best exit there out of turn 7, and it's allowed Turbo Swerve to get right on his gearbox as they swing around this far section of the track. Really difficult to make a move around here, but if you can outpace the car through the corners, then you'll get a fantastic launch that will just keep on paying all the way up to turn 1, and if you can get a good launch out of there, then you really are in the money seat for turn 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like he has managed to make a little bit more of a buffer now though, so maybe a bit more cleaner into turn 3 this lap, as Rashado has also dived into the pits at the end of lap 3. That's very unfortunate for Lauren driver.
Those hard tyres will be screaming by the end of the race because they'll still take a hell of a punishment.
Yeah, it's down to hard compound tyres. So whereas Crew Tracy opted to go onto softs to make another stop in this race, Rashado is looking to try and go to the end here. If the safety car can bring the field together, that may end up being quite a decent strategy, but that is a big if.
It's a massive if, because he probably won't have the pace either to compete with some other drivers who will be looking to immediately get onto the mediums at that point and comfortably make it work to the end of the race. I think if a safety car comes up, I think he'll be willing to go back into the pits and getting onto a similar strategy to the rest of them and just using his outright pace to beat those in the back.
It's possible. Weltering is right on the back of Mill here. We have Kate Bad right behind as well. In these 3 consecutive DRS straights, it looked like Weltering was going to try and make a move, but quite get close enough to the first of them. And as we round turn 3, Weltering, for a good launch, can't quite get it. and it looks like they will stay in the order that they remain. Unless DRS is powerful enough, and it is, that Weltering go round the outside into turn 4, has to leave a little bit of space for the Ferrari, but makes the move being that Weltering got into P2.
All this battling's allowing Cakebag to stay on back of the podium places at the moment. He didn't have a good launch out of turn 3, but with that battling into turn 4, it allowed him to close right back up, and he'll get DRS on Miele as they come down the start-finish straight here.
Yeah, absolutely, and with this being such a high-speed track with 3 consecutive DRS zones, you really do see these trains form, and if you can latch onto cars ahead, even if they are quicker in pace, you can just stay within a second and carried by them in the field.
Be remiss if I didn't speak about our keyboard warrior here in Div 2, 1 goal, about to make the move on the racing line into turn 3, and he's going to swing it around the outside, gets it turned in really nicely, but Turbo Swerve got the better exit out of that corner and gets DRS for his troubles and will easily hold this position, you'd expect, unless 1 goal tries something quite outrageous down the inside. He doesn't. He'll bide his time as Turbo Swerve locks it up a touch, gets out on the rumble strip on the outside, and it once again allows the Renault to close back up, but now into this really difficult section of the track. It's just consecutive corners and very difficult to make a move stick around this section of the track. You've really got to bide your time and wait for those DRS zones.
1 goal has picked up what seems to be the first penalty of the race for track limits infringements, going wide through the exit of turn 5 there. That's unfortunate.
Seen in the practice races, plenty of penalties come up, so I think 1 or 2 throughout the race is probably not going to be too bad, but I mean, I saw a disqualification in one of the practice races yesterday.
Oh,
so,
wow, okay.
And in fact, it may have been 1 goal, so we'll have to keep an eye on him.
A little bit of dirt from the grandstands there.
Indeed.
Goes for the move again into turn 3. The problem with trying around the outside in turn 3 is that the defending car can just go quite deep, blocked off the line, and pulling off the switchback is incredibly difficult because...
Yeah, with Max Verstappen.
Yeah, exactly. Bondol does make the move stick around the outside. It's very close on the inside with Turbo Swerve there. Has Turbo Swerve made it out of that without any damage on that?
Yeah, looks like it. I don't think there was any contact, but yeah, it was very close as the cars unwind.
Yeah, it's such a high-speed circuit into pretty much every corner, so you have to be so precise, make sure you don't make contact.
And Cakebag's gone off.
Oh,
and he's going to lose it here as well, and he's going to have to get on the brakes. That's going to ruin his tyres as well. He went really wide out of the penultimate corner and then spun it around, I think, just trying to get back on the racing line. He is going to drop right down through the field from a position that he was up in 2nd, I think, at one stage in this race. Maybe 3rd.
that is very unfortunate. Oh, and the tyres are still roasting hot. They were about 130 when I got on board there, and that is just going to cause so much degradation and so much sliding for these next 2 laps. The lock up there, got to be so careful to just keep the car going. As Wandle's picked up another time penalty, trying to make the move around Tori. Climbing through the field very impressively, but of course if you're going to lose all those places after the race anyway, how much is it really worth?
Sometimes, I know from racing myself, you have got to throw caution to the wind.
Managed to make it round the inside in turn 9 there. 1 goal, a little bit too much space there, and dropped back again.
He'll be getting a little bit hot under the helmet now, I think. But it's important for him to keep his head because, like I was saying, you're trying to maximise the start of this race, and sometimes picking up a few penalties along the way isn't too bad, but once you get into that 2nd stint, and it's the longest stint of the race, you've just got to get into a flow of hitting every corner, not running out too wide, and making sure you're not picking up unnecessary penalties, and giving yourself a real grilling when you do to make sure you don't do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see that Wandle's teammate Jesse Bidman has actually gone into the pits for a new set of soft compound tyres. Matt, did you see if there was a front wing change there, or is Jazzy being on possibly to stop here?
No, I didn't see it, unfortunately, but he's chosen for those soft tyres yet again, so I wonder whether a lot of this field are angling for a two-stopper anyway with 2 sets of softs onto the medium tyre.
I mean, it may not be a bad call if you are expecting safety cars to be common, as Jesse Binman goes around Felix the Feline on those older soft compound tyres in P13. And Wondol has also gone into the pits here. See if...
Yeah, there's a new front wing.
It is a new front wing, that is unfortunate. So, Wondol battling so much through those opening stages of the race. And has come off worse for wear at the end of it all. Definitely not the way he was hoping this race to go. He's gone to medium compound tyres.
Mediums.
There will need to be another stop, but possibly make a cheap pit stop to softs near the end of the race. Fastest lap attempt, perhaps.
Perhaps he's going to make sure he's in the top 10 for that to count, of course, but some strong defending here as Prune Tracy looking to make his way back through the field after a lap 1 pit stop, I think. He went back onto the soft, so they've degraded a fair amount. I think a lot of the grid now are looking for a safety car to bring them back into this race, and I'm not sure whether they're going to get it because everyone so far has been making relatively clean moves, but it is only, you know, a split second to go to the gravel round here.
Absolutely, but of course the gravel isn't going to guarantee a safety car. The cars are all fairly spaced out at this point. There aren't very many trains, and so it's possible that it just won't happen. As Weltering has gone into the pits, started from pole position, is pitting on lap 10, and has picked up a time penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
No new front wing for him, and he's gone straight onto the hards. So this is the safe strategy if your race has been uninterrupted so far. It's going softs to around lap 11, lap 12, and then going onto the hards and making them last the rest of the race. They will still struggle to reach the end of the race. You do have to manage them to some extent. It's very, very hard on your tyres around here in Austria. The heat definitely making a contribution to that.
As Weltering just about managed to get out ahead of Rochedo on those older hard compound tyres, and so hands on to P11 so far, but obviously has a pit stop on the rest of the field. And Cruiser Jenez, Mr. McLaren, has just launched into now 7 seconds ahead of the rest of the pack.
Once he got clear of the DRS, it is very easy to then extend on your lead. It'll be crucial for him to time his pit stop here and to decide whether he is going to play it safe with the position that he's got and the time advantage he's got over second place, whether he goes straight to the hard tyres to go to the end, or whether he is going to try and long these softs out to around about lap 15, lap 16, and then go for the medium tyres to the end. But even then, it will take some very considerable tyre management. And
as Mill spins on the exit of turn 3. That is so unfortunate for the Ferrari driver. Has lost 1, 2, 3 positions and a good portion of the front wing there. Mill was in the middle of that pack going second place, and see the dirty air at the exit of turn 3, got the throttle a little too heavily and just lost the car into the barrier.
Keep on mentioning it, but these soft tyres will be screaming at this point. You're going to be up in the 60% here, and you'll be looking to make them last until around the 70% if you want to make the medium tyre work in the second stint. So you have to be so careful on these very, very heavy traction zones. You've got to lay the throttle down like you are. I'd love to think of a good analogy here, but I simply can't. You've got to lay it down so nicely to get a good exit here. And I wouldn't be surprised if he came into the pits, although he's running incredibly wide there. You know, he does come into the pits.
I wanted to go into the pits there, but did not expect the lack of downforce on that front wing. He gets slowed down in time, does get slowed down in time, but not through the front wing. Now, we'd be expecting to see him onto the hard compound tyres here for the one stop, but it looks like another fresh set of soft compound tyres, so looking for the two stop to switch onto mediums later in the race. It's very interesting.
It is. We're entering soft, you know, the pit stop window now for those soft tyres, for those who've run 12 laps. And I wouldn't be surprised if it started happening this lap or the next lap and them going to hards. But it will be interesting to see what percentage of this field decide to pit onto another set of softs as we've been seeing down the grid, and whether that is just the preferred decision.
Goes way off track in turn 8, giving Turboswerve the run. Into turn 9, it's not quite enough to get around. Oh, it will actually work down the inside there. I was expecting the DRS assistance on the start-finish straight, but that is a fantastic move from the Red Bull.
Amazing drive. out of the penultimate corner as well, just to hold the position and to keep down the inside. But good clean racing there. Got the idea that perhaps one of them might just turn in on each other, but it didn't happen. Good racing.
But Tori has stayed alongside him with the DRS. He's turned down the inside into turn 3. Managed to get a run, but can't quite get the corner done cleanly. He picks up a penalty and does not manage to make that move stick. So that's a very unfortunate scenario for the AlphaTauri driver.
You're reliant on the car on the outside, leaving you enough space on the apex, and you're also begging them not to force you over that curb on the inside. I think Tori probably got turned in a little bit too early and did have the space to avoid it. He'll pick up a time penalty for his problems, and it will, of course, have had a negative effect on getting the traction down and getting caught up down the straight despite the DRS assistance.
I can't help but notice, Tom, that the sky has turned much darker than it was when we were starting this race. There is quite heavy cloud coming down, and I just wonder if there is rain about to fall onto the circuit in the Austrian mountain.
Of course, this is the benefit of being a driver in the game, and now those drivers stopping for another set of softs for their second stint don't look so silly if the rain is going to come.
As Tori dives into the pits for a set of mediums, there is no front wing change. That is purely strategic choice. And we're looking to get out ahead of his teammate Weltering, who is trying to set up a move there. Bound crude racing.
The guys at the top of the field have got to be careful now, because these tyres are going to be on their limit. And if there is rain to come, and this isn't going to be a wholly dry race, staying out on these softs doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You could easily go for another set of softs, take this to lap 30, or you could go to a set of mediums and potentially go the distance here if the rain doesn't end up coming. But staying on these softs in sort of treacherous conditions that they're going to be in, and they've got to be careful now about not taking these softs too far.
As Tori and Weltering have both managed to make a move on that.
Oh, cake bag!
As cake bag has been sent round. Oh, that is so unfortunate.
I think he just dropped it on his own. Too much of the go fast pedal on the exit.
Yeah, possibly. Falls out of the points paying positions here by quite some way as Nordi dives into the pits here.
It's twice now for cake bag, and that is gutting for him.
Nordi pits for medium tyres, and around lap 15 is the point where you're thinking that it may be possible to pull off the one stop into medium tyres. You have to be so careful. As Opsin, going into turn 4, takes the inside line around Turbo Swerve and manages to make the move stick, moves into P2 in this race.
Are my eyes deceiving me, or am I seeing drops of rain falling here in the Styrian Mountains?
I think there are drops of rain falling here. That is incredible. So all of these drivers who have made early stops are going to be very frustrated that they can't have to make another one at the end of this race. So Rashado definitely not making the right call on those hard compound tyres. Bad dives into the pits for Harms.
Cake bag on the lap before, where we saw him spin, then spun again at the last corner. I was on board with him, just really struggling to get going. But for those who started on the medium tyres, perhaps because they didn't qualify as well, certainly in a very good position here to keep these medium tyres on right until Jeff says it's time for inters.
Absolutely. And how long do you think it will be before Jeff makes that call over the radio?
That's the impossible question, because we've seen it already in Div 1 and Div 3 this year, where the rain has come sort of around about the middle of the race. We all get excited because we think it's going to mean tyre changes, it's going to be chaos. You know, thinking about who are going to be the big winners, who are going to be the big losers from going to the tyres too early or too late. And then the rain just doesn't quite come enough onto the track, and then you're left with this situation of slippery, wet conditions, but the dry tyres still being the fastest, which could cause some very interesting situations. But I think we'd like to see a wet race at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a lot more interesting strategically if you have to make in those calls as to what tyres to go onto. We did see in the Div 1 race last week where was it Fraser who went soft, hoping that the rain would fall by the end of the race into medium tyres, and it almost worked out for him.
Yeah, and then you Same happened in Canada. Oh, and Opsin very trigger happy on the exit of turn 3, nearly spun.
Has got a good run going into turn 3 here though, and makes it past Tori. But has to make it stick, and of course, got to be so gentle on the throttle at any point around this corner, but especially in these infinite conditions, because you just don't know how much traction your tyres can find. And Tori does get a run back past there into turn 4.
If I was in the cockpit now, I'd be getting on the radio to Jeff, constantly asking him for updates on this weather, and perhaps playing around with my downforce settings on the front wing. Obviously that's an option under Parc Fermé settings, and something that they're able to do in the pit lane mid-race is add a little bit more front downforce, because we run with very low front downforce here in Austria. So I think it's important that these guys perhaps start thinking ahead and getting themselves set up for what could end up as a wet race, as Tori nearly drops at the exit of the last corner. And that is the sort of condition that the tyres and the racetrack are in at the moment, with the rain falling.
It looks like it's getting heavier and heavier. And what we do have is a few cars who are still on the soft compound tyres they started the race on. Now, of course, they will be wearing less under the lower conditions, but it's still very difficult. It's just stretch to the intermediate point, as Mill
and someone has bitten.
So I think everyone around Mill will be checking that delta to see if it's flying through the field or falling like a stone to the back, because that'll give you a very good indication as to how fast those intermediate tyres are.
And the leader pits.
The leader has gone in, possibly just out of desperation.
And speeds.
Yeah, 5-second penalty there. Of course, with 18-lap-old soft compound tyres, they had to make
and
a
he's
stop.
going to the inters.
And I think that was the only option. Turbos from behind has done the same. So Opsin, started on the medium compound tyres, is now in the lead of this race. And if we have not reached crossover yet, as Turboswerve has pitted for medium compound tyres. So the two cars in the podium positions who were on very old softs have gone on alternate strategies here, with Turboswerve not believing that the rain is heavy enough. And I don't know if I can agree with that. I think surely at some point soon it's going to reach crossover point. Weltering has gone in as well, as has proved basically an Aralac. But I think you can see that the main winner out of this will be Opsin, who does not have to make that call on aged soft tyres of what to dive in for, and just wait it out for the crossover point.
Can wait, and usually a good time to tell when it really is. It is the moment to switch. Everyone who's switched tyres now is really looking to gain a place. But for those who are just looking to follow the strategy to the T, Opsin going so slow around the last corner, opts to stay out. Goodness me, that was very slow. And I wonder whether now is going to be the lap where the DRS goes off, is what I was going to say. Is the DRS being turned off is usually the moment where it is time to pit for the inters. Everyone else who's pitted for now is looking to gain some time and looking to gain some places.
And looking at the deltas, Trues and Jennis, I think, gained 3 seconds in that last lap. And with the rain falling heavier and heavier, it can only become an even bigger delta between the two drivers. So could the McLaren get past by the end of this lap? Possibly. Depends how clean Opsin can be. Constant gain on those intermediate tyres.
Opsin's tyres are going to be on the limit as well now. Of course, they're the medium grip tyre. Of course, in these situations, a set of fresh softs would be absolutely perfect.
We go past Feline, who was still out on the original soft compound tyres, and they have not worked. And DRS has been disabled as Trudeau goes down the inside of Opsin. And Opsin is okay. On my stream, Opsin just went to the side there, and you had to think that possibly he had made contact with McLaren.
Opsin's still going to be in a good position here. The man he's going to be coming out behind, I think, at this rate is going to be 1 goal. So he's still going to be P5. Turboswerve's got a pit as well, so he'll come out behind Opsin. So I think this has still really worked well for Opsin. He's played the strategy to exactly what Jeff wanted. Goes on the lap that the DRS goes off, and now should come out in a very good position. And much for, I mean, I don't know what place he started. I missed qualifying, unfortunately. He's up 10 places. So he's going to be in such a good position, but he's double stacking.
The racing point started in 11th and 12th respectively. So that is the state of play for Opsin. So we're very happy to be making that move. Unfortunately for Opsin is that it's a double stack behind a teammate who is a lap down on the field, it looks like.
Yeah.
So that is such unfortunate timing. Of course, being on a crossover like this, you have to make the call. But it's just awful time when you get caught behind your lapped teammate. And I think we have to say that one of the big losers from this exchange has to be Turbo Swerve, surely, who pitted on the same lap as Cruz Jenez, but went onto the medium compound tyres and had to switch again. Still holding in 4th place, but is more than 30 seconds behind the lead now.
One goal is the man I think we have to look at here and go, you've played an absolute blinder. He's 30 seconds, well, of course, Cruz Jenez, obviously. 30 seconds behind the leader for 1 goal isn't great, but he's come out ahead of so many cars. He was running down in 6th, 7th at the start of this race, and struggling to get past the field, picking up time penalties. I haven't seen him picked up another time penalty since, and he's up in 2nd.
Yeah, as Aralak moves into the pits, presumably a set of intermediate tyres, which will bring the entire field on those medium tyres.
Those softs are less than a lap old, so I think he got done dirty by the pit crew.
I think that might be the case, unfortunately. Now,
and I must say, sorry, at this stage of the race, I cannot believe I've got to go and stream Div 1 because I just want to keep on watching this. But I have to go and stream Div 1. So after the Div 2 race finishes, make sure you come over to twitch.tv/our F1 Racing League and join us for Div 1. And I hope it's going to be half as interesting as this race has been. I'm going to watch this back later.
Oh, absolutely. I'll have to let you know how it went in chat.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, thanks for having us for this portion of the race, and I'll see you later.
So, settle into a very different complexion of race here, with all the cars in intermediate tyres just trying to fight through the conditions. Turbo Swerve and Weltering are less than a second away in their battle for the final podium position, of course. Now we are in intermediate territory. There is no DRS assistance, so being within a second is not the crucial thing here. The crucial thing is behind the pass on track. And of course, this weather change does explain some of the earlier strategy decisions where cars on lap 8 perhaps, another set of softs. And of course, if you know that the rain is coming near the end of the race, and you don't have to make it all the way to the checkered flag, then that decision is a lot easier to make. And I think one goal is definitely an example of a driver who started on soft compound tyres, knew they couldn't quite make it to the rain crossover, and so made the call early rather than trying to extend onto another set, and has come out looking very good from that exchange. Because Nordi has headed into the pits for wet tyres. Are you kidding me? The Haas driver going onto the full wets. Even stronger grooves now, of course. They will be better at displacing water here, but you have to wonder if it's a bit too early, because if it is too early, those tyres will overheat quickly. Follow on board through turn 3. And it is very heavy rain here, so perhaps it's not the worst decision that could be made. But it's not about whether you switch onto these tyres, it's often about when you switch onto them. This long left to go in the race, it can just be if you make the call a couple of laps earlier, gain time when the cars around on slower tyres. As everyone else, still on the intermediate tyres for the time being. We see any cars pull into the pits as this race progresses. As Turbo Swerve is looking to make a move around Weltering, possibly on track here, very close within half a second. A very difficult decision. If you can see the car in front and make a mistake, then you just need to be there to capitalise on it as soon as it happens. As we come around the final corner, so this is either of these cars moving into the pit lane, wet tyres. They are both stayed out for the time being, and Nordi, I believe, has lost only a couple of sections, but has not gained so far on this ultimate strategy. Tory pits with 3-second time penalty for FS. Of course, I think in conditions like this, you have to be okay with picking up a little bit of warning, just to make sure that you don't lose the car completely. That really is the danger around here. Now, cars have only been on the intermediate tyres for 5 or 6 laps at this point. But Nordi on those wets isn't losing that much time. I think it is slightly slower, but it's only marginal, and so within a couple of laps here we might be seeing Jeff make another call, go onto the full wet tyres, to disperse 18th quarter a second into the behind. So tough to judge. And of course, when you're actually in the visor, it's even more difficult to know when you switch over. As Rashado spins on the curb of turn 8, it's such a simple corner to take most of the time, but in these conditions, you just touch the paint there, and there's so little grip, it can just send you round. That's so unfortunate for the McLaren driver. And the yellow flag for that, it looks like he hasn't lost a position, but fallen right into the clutches of the field behind. Opts to stay out. Could have dove into the pits, but I think he wanted to hold his nerve a little bit. As Nordi has actually fallen back a position on those wet tyres, so it looks as if they may not be in the optimum window here. As Turbo Swerve still on the back of Weltering here, his final podium spot. Red Bull car behind the system team of the AlphaTauri, scrapping away 15 points. And as we watch this battle, what we can do is we can identify that Cruiser Genes has the fastest lap right now, and I'm going to make a bold claim that that will not be beaten before the end of this race, because I don't see anyone going any faster in these conditions. It looks like Weltering is looking to go into the pits here, and we have to assume that would be for wet tyres. Meanwhile, Nordi has gone into the pits as well. So we have to look what the cause of this is. So Weltering dives in, and it looks like it is the full wet tyres Weltering switches onto there, as well as a front wind change. A bit of damage, it decides to go onto the wet weather tyres. But meanwhile, Nordi has gone into the pits and decided to ditch the same wet tyres, go back onto intermediates. So we are at such a crucial point of this race, and making the right tyre decision is going to mean so much to these drivers. But judging by decision Nordi made, it's like Weltering may made the wrong call. We'll have to see. As Weltering has come out not far behind the Renault Jazzy Binman, still on the intermediates. We'll have to see if this gap can shrink at any point over the next few laps. Now the crossover between dries and intermediates is so sharp, and if you miss it by a lap, you lose so much time. I mean, the intermediates and the wet tends to be more gradual, so you won't quite gain or lose as much generally, but it still can be a point if you're to get an overcut or an undercut against cars around you. And I think that will definitely be Weltering's stance here, trying to make sure that he doesn't lose position to Turbo Swerve in the pit lane. Weltering isn't making up any ground on the Renault in front, then you'd have to expect with Weltering was in a higher position. A midfield car should be easier work than it's looking right now, as Oxin goes into the pits for wet tyres as well, coming out behind Weltering. Weltering has now got within a second of Jazzy Binman, so it's possible his tyres are given a slight advantage. Now, Turbo Swerve is getting on the alternate strategy here, coming round turn 4, keeping it clean. been very cautious on that curve at turn 8 that we saw the Shadow spin on. Shadow has made it up into P5 here, but of course it is currently on intermediate tyres, and that may not be the call very much longer. Turbo Swerve still thinks the tyres can work, as Weltering is right on the back of Jazzy Binman now, fighting for 6th place on different tyre choices. Jazzy Binman has to slow up in that corner, and I think Weltering has a little bit more grip right now. Looks down the inside into turn 9, makes the move stick. Now, of course, Binman might be trying to get into the pit lane here, switch if he sees that those wet tyres are faster. Look to be tending for that as we have a yellow flag out in the middle of the circuit. Weltering may be going fast enough here to make this strategy work. It's such a tough decision to make, and of course as we only have 5 laps left, it could be a scenario where while the wet tyres are theoretically faster, the cars that are currently out in intermediates don't want to lose 20 seconds in the pits to swap, and so they might just be hoping they can hold on for long enough and make it to the end of this race. A lot of pity for time penalty. Bill made a call early for intermediates here. These are 10 laps old. You do start to feel a little bit of wear on these tyres, not quite as much as on the slicks, but they've done 11 laps, then they really can start feeling painful. Especially if the early running was on a drier track, too much heat for the tyres. And of course, as groove tyres wear down, those grooves become shallower and shallower. And in a track that's getting wetter and wetter, that can be very difficult to hold off. Kick bag. Within a second of Opsin on the wet tyres ahead. Another mismatched tyre battle. Kick bag made a big gain through turn 8, that was Opsin, and a little bit of a slide on the rear end. Can't quite make the move into turn 9. But we're just keep it close and wait for another mistake. Opsin then. As we now go into the final 5 laps of the race, it's starting to look like there may not be enough time for these intermediate runners to go onto wet tyres and make up that advantage, even if they are faster. So you may have seen the final pit stop of this race. It's now down to every car on the circuit to make the best they can they have available. If I can't make a move stick into turn 3 there, because if you do want to make a move there, you have to hope you get traction down well on the Edison. That's a different thing. If I pops it by this time, make the move around the outside of Opsin, turn 4 instead, to P9. And that is a bad sign for weltering on the wet weather tyres as well. Opsin is falling back a fair way off Capeback. Now of course there is a very large gap to 11th here, so Opsin is not really in much danger of falling out of the points, but definitely hoping to bring away more than one race. Don't hope the rain comes down heavier in these final few laps, give the full wet tyres the edge. I think for a lot of these cars it really is just a vacuum on the track, because if you're running intermediate tyres in conditions like this, it's so tricky. It's just, you need to make it home. If you don't make it to the end of the race, then you don't get any points. And so even though these tyres are old, and even though they're not really best in conditions, especially if they're worn and have shallower tread, you have to keep them going to the end, which maybe losing a pit stop is massive. See Mill get a bit sliding turn 3 there, managed to keep it there. On the oldest tyres of the lot, 13 on these intermediates. And we'll definitely be hoping that this car can make it to the end of the race. Let's see where Hanji Cruz is currently 32 seconds ahead of the lead. Made a strategy call at the right time. I think the main thing that got a good run in the first couple of laps, managed to break DRS and rode off into the sunset. Dominant performance from the McLaren driver there. That's opposite. All are now 2 seconds behind Kate Bed on these. His tyres really do not look finding their feet in these mixed conditions. The Red Bull not quite enough vein given the edge over the intermediates, and the grooves are just less contact onto the surface of the track to find grip. So it's sliding a lot more. Really, the field has spread out a little bit. You don't want to be too close to another car in these conditions, because if they make a mistake, which is very easy to do, they can often just flick right into your front and force another pit stop. So this short to go in the base is the objective of all these drivers, just quickly bring the cars around the circuit a final couple of times, as Prune Tracy has been fallen out of this race on the penultimate lap. Prune Tracy was out of the points, but that's still got to be gutting, being so close to the end of the race and not being able to see the checkered flag. And I think for the Racing Point team as a whole, this will be a very disappointing race. Opsin looking promising at times, but not able to move above 10th place here with that tyre decision. Even Chris Jennis was the line to start the final lap of this race. We are less than 60 seconds from the checkered flag falling in Austria, and Cruiser Jennis has a massive advantage over the cars behind. But we'll definitely be trying to keep nerve, not let our fall out and complete the race. Be heading into turn 4. Gentle bottle, the rear end left a little bit, but still keeping it pointed in the right direction and doing so cautiously around turn 6. Lapped car ahead, just no on it. Cautious as possible. Don't need to do anything special, just need to move around the final 2 corners. And as we round turn 10 of this Austrian Grand Prix circuit, Cruiser Jenez will cross the line to take the checkered flag and the win. 26 points for McLaren, for the leader here. A very, very clean race. Cruiser Jenez, fantastic show. As Iman and Antori come home in 7th and 8th, as the lapped cars got to come across the line here. One Dream rounds the final 2 corners. And Bill may not be close enough here for Turso. It's within just about 2 seconds, so it could count to time penalties here. But we have to, if it is enough. Turboswerve crosses the line and moves up into P2 with all the penalties that Wondol has. Can Mill do the same? No, Mill stays in P4. Wondol, One Dream. A lot of penalties early in this race. Lost a position on track for it, but has managed to hold on to a podium for Renault. Mill comes home in P4. Shado across the line, P5 for McLaren. A very good job indeed, with 36 points in total for the Woking team. And weltering for us on those wet weather tyres, possibly not the right call, but still a very impressive P6 for AlphaTauri. They may be disappointed with the start from pole position, but in a race like this, you really have to try and get as much as you can. Drive the data to 1 goal, 1 dream. An excellent strategy early on in this race, knowing that the wet weather was coming. at a podium. Very difficult point of the track. And there we go, Trudeau enjoying that podium very much. A well-deserved victory for McLaren. And the other two cars alongside, one of them is powered by the same Renault engine that brought him to victory. Of course, being the Honda power unit that will only be in Formula 1 till the end of that season. And here is your final classification for Austria, as apparently the sun has come out after the checkered flag. We have Trudeau taking the win by a long way. Turbo Swerve and Wondol One Dream rounding out the podium. Mill, Trado, Weltering, Dazzy Bin Man, Tori, H-Bad and Opsin round out the top 10. With Nordi, Aralak and Fearless the Feline rounding out our finishers. Food Tracy does get classified in this race, and so all 14 cars are credited with a race finish. A fantastic showing from the Div 2 drivers in difficult conditions, and that may just be a repeat of what's to come in the remaining races this weekend. So with that result, it's time to wrap this up. I definitely think that we have to award Driver of the Day to Wondol One Dream. Is a fantastic choice there. Although Trudeau is also a very good just for running off into the set so early. And now that we are done here, I recommend that you all head right on over to the Twitch channel F1 Racing League. You are starting the Division 1 race of this league very shortly. Has that host worked? I honestly don't know if that's worked. I will see you all next time. Thank you so much for watching.